and thank you for tuning in to Couchbase's customer interview series, Leaders of Innovation, where we speak with industry leaders about their company's transformations. My name is Scott Anderson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product Management and Business Operations here at Couchbase. Here with me today is Mohan Umapathy, Director of Software Development at Verizon, to talk about modern applications, technology trends in the digital transformation era, and the role cloud plays in Verizon's businesses. Welcome. We've had a number of conversations over the last couple of years, Mohan, talking about your adoption of Couchbase. And I think what would be great just for the audience is just tell us a little bit about yourself, your team's goals at Verizon would be wonderful.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for the warm introduction. My name is Mohan Umapathy. I lead the IoT platform development at Verizon. And you can imagine like all of the IoT devices that are getting added to our ecosystem, they essentially are managed through the ThinkSpace platform that we developed for Verizon. So essentially our customers utilize the ThinkSpace platform to onboard and manage the life cycle of those devices, and also to essentially to be able to monitor and be able to take real-time actions on those IoT devices using the ThinkSpace platform. I mean, personally, I have been very much interested in this field for a long time, and I have been working on the telematics before this. So I have a long history on the IoT field, even before the term IoT became official. And we have been a customer of Couchbase since 2013, and we kind of evaluated a lot of technologies even back then, and we were really impressed with the functionality that Couchbase was able to provide for our key value use cases back in 2013, and that's how we really became a customer of Couchbase, and we have been kind of having a good partnership and a long journey working with Couchbase on modernizing and making our IoT platform scale and grow a lot for our needs.
Yeah, and Mohan, it's been a long time, but when you think about when Couchbase was originally a cache and just a KV store, and we've added a ton of functionality over the time that you've been a customer with Couchbase. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, drill in a little bit on how you began with Couchbase, kind of what was the driver, and then where you are now, and what are your future plans with Couchbase in terms of the existing applications and potentially new use cases?
Absolutely, Scott. So when we started, we had one primary challenge that we wanted to solve, which is essentially, if you really think about these IoT devices, there are a lot of them. And number two, they actually like to talk very frequently. So one of the key challenges that we had was being able to provide real-time visibility and real-time status of these devices to our customers, and being able to make sure that they are not getting a batched view that was 1 day earlier or an hour earlier.
Yep.
So the primary goal of evaluating Couchbase back then was really, okay, hey, how do we solve that use case where we are able to maintain the real-time status and being able to query on that and being able to report on that real-time status to our customers. And when we evaluated it, we were really impressed with the performance of the key value functionality that Couchbase provided. And since then, what we have done is that we started with the key value, and then we realized that not only can we utilize Couchbase for the key value functionality, that at that time, it also provided a connector to Elasticsearch, which provided us the ability to search and report on that real-time data as well. So essentially, we kind of started with key value and then expanded to an integration with Elasticsearch for the search capability. Now, that capability has been operational and it is working in our production data center since 2016. And I'm happy to say that the solution is very mature, and we are really impressed with the scalability and the growth of the solution since we adopted 7 years ago. And recently, what we have been doing is really evaluating additional use cases on top of the key value, which is primarily we are evaluating Couchbase to see how we can bring the full text search into an integrated solution to simplify the database administration, as well as reducing the total cost of ownership of the overall solution, so that we are not trying to manage multiple different solutions within our data grid ecosystem. And also we are looking to see how we can expand on that relationship in the future to be able to store and manage high density data in the same store. And if we are able to achieve that, it will actually unify all of our database needs into a single platform, and at the same time be able to reduce our total cost of ownership, because now we are not having to manage 3 different solutions. We can essentially consolidate that all of them into a one single database solution. That's our target goal, and that's what we are working towards, and partnering very closely with Couchbase on trying to see how we can evolve the existing solutions to be able to meet our needs.
That's a great description. I think we've seen that quite a bit with our customer base is starting potentially with caching and KV. And as we've extended the capabilities of the Couchbase platform, bringing in query, full text search, analytics, and eventing features, doing that from a point of view of how do we simplify the overall infrastructure that customers like Verizon are using, and primarily to remove complexity as well as reduce the total cost of ownership. I had one follow-up question, if you wouldn't mind, just to help the audience understand really the scale at which Verizon is managing IoT devices. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about the number of devices and the growth that Couchbase has been able to support with Verizon over the last 8+ years.
Right. So when we originally started, we probably had close to 20 million devices on the platform, and we have now close to 56 million devices on the platform. So, and we have to say, when we started, we probably were doing maybe 3,000, 4,000 transactions per second, or CRUD operations per second on the platform. And now we are hitting close to 15,000 to 20,000 operations. At peak, we are actually scaling to 200,000 updates or changes on our data on our Couchbase cluster. So the scale has really, I think what we have grown is on the normal level, we have grown 5x over the last 8 years. At peaks, we have grown more than 15x. And what we can tell you is that so one of the key things that we have to think about our platform is the 5 nines availability. Essentially, we don't have a maintenance window or a planned downtime for our platform. So the platform really has to stay up all the time, and it has to work across multiple data centers so that we can have the geo redundancy to be able to provide the high availability that our customers are looking for. And when we evaluated various solutions, Couchbase stood out in terms of being able to replicate the data set across multiple data centers. And the XDCR, one of the standout features that we were able to utilize to provide the high availability and also be able to do maintenance without impact. So we can essentially do a rolling upgrade of an existing cluster, and potentially when we have to even work on a complete data center upgrade from a hardware rollout perspective or network upgrade perspective, we are able to, essentially in an active configuration, just migrate the workload to the other data center and essentially have the data processed there, and just have the replication take care of synchronizing the data back when the other data center is back in service, and continue the operation as if nothing happened. So those capabilities really has allowed us to not only scale our processing capacity, but also provide high availability and redundancy that is also very important to our use cases.
Yeah, and that's a very common pattern with Couchbase customers. Very similar to Verizon, running a tier 0 or tier 1 application, in your case, tier 0, that has to be able to scale and perform to match the needs of your customers and your business as you continue to perform and take market share in your industry, as well as ensuring the availability, kind of 5 nines reliability of that service, which I greatly appreciate being a Verizon customer myself. So I'm one of those 55 million devices out there, at least from a phone perspective. But it's wonderful to hear that as your application and the success of your business grow, Couchbase was there with you all the way, providing that scale and performance, and most importantly, the availability of your service, which your customers demand. Want to pivot a little bit and talk about a couple of technology trends. So one of those is really around cloud and trying to understand the role that cloud plays in the Verizon business, how you evaluate clouds, how you're looking at adopting it, what sort of use cases that you think are most applicable for leveraging cloud going today and going forward into the future.
Absolutely, Scott. I would say the industry is pivoting to, I would say, cloud and a cloud native architecture. So essentially, when we originally started, being a telecom player, we originally were essentially focused on bare metal hardware systems. And over a period of time, what we realized is that there are advantages to being on the cloud. So we actually started pivoting, and then we have a situation where we are actually running in a hybrid mode where some of our services are in the cloud and some of our services are actually on the on-prem bare metal system. The reality is cloud allows you for dynamic expansion and capacity. That is very, very hard to achieve in an on-prem system. So you can spin up your cluster to a very high number of nodes very quickly and spin them down when you don't really need them. And that trend, I think, is not going to go away, because that gives you the flexibility and in terms of being able to manage the workload without having to plan for that level of hardware being available all the time. Now, what we are also doing is that we have certain types of workload that we know for sure are going to always be there, independent of the dynamic scalability. We can predict that our workload is consistent across this particular time. For that type of workload, we are still continuing to be on the on-prem cloud. But even there, what has happened is the technology shift has influenced us to migrate from our previous architectures to a cloud native architecture where we can really actually achieve that scale out and the flexibility on our service levels, even on our on-prem cloud. And we are planning to use the Couchbase Kubernetes operator for our deployment to our migration to our cloud native architecture. And we have been evaluating that. And I know for a long time that Couchbase has been a pioneer in the database field in terms of supporting Kubernetes operator. And we have been kind of evaluating and trying that out in our labs. And when we go to production, we'll be utilizing the Couchbase operator for on Kubernetes.
Yeah, well, I'll toot our own horn a little bit on that one, Mon. We were the first NoSQL database to have an operator supporting Kubernetes, broadly adopted across our customers, both in private clouds as well as public clouds. And I think you made a really, really important point there, which is the architecture that you're using, irrespective of the deployment in your own private cloud, on-prem, or in public cloud, is having the flexibility because you have a consistent cloud native architecture that allows you to potentially move workloads without having to re-architect them to the cloud, which we see a very, very strong trend. I think the other point that you brought up, which is very important, is I think we've seen a shift, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, where maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago, the edict from above was everything's going into the public cloud. And what I've observed is now it's more of a workload by workload basis, as you said. If I've got a steady state infrastructure, there's not much growth, where can I manage that or purchase that infrastructure in the most cost-effective way? But there are other workloads where dynamic scaling is critically important to achieve the total cost of ownership that you're looking for.
Absolutely. I think the industry is maturing. That's why you see a lot of these hybrid cloud solutions that are coming into play, built on top of the cloud native architecture to be able to even migrate the workloads across both the public cloud and the private clouds in a seamless fashion. But it all comes down to total cost of ownership, right? I mean, the cost of ownership and being able to operate it. And also some cases, it could be a security and privacy and legal reasons of why you don't want that data to be stored on the public cloud. And those reasons could also potentially influence whether you are running your workload in the public cloud or on the private cloud. But I think the trend of what you exactly mentioned, Scott, is that even when you're running on your private cloud, you still want to get the advantage of being able to dynamically scale using the operator, Kubernetes operator. And that is a key decision for us as well.
Yeah, and the operator provides that functionality in terms of threshold-based scaling at the compute level as well as storage expansion. That really creates that level of automation for Verizon and other companies to effectively manage that infrastructure and do that at a very granular level to optimize cost over time. I would like to pivot to the one question that everybody asks. It's been on the top of mind for a number of years and kind of exploded really, I think, over the last 8 months with the launch of ChatGPT. But maybe you can talk about how Verizon and your team is looking at the implications of AI today on your business and into the future.
That's one of the important questions we are trying to answer as well. And one thing that has happened internally is that, like, primarily, my organization is a software development organization. So it was actually an easy decision for me to say, hey, I'm going to be like trialing the Gen AI tool sets and figuring out how we can adopt this Gen AI tool sets from a software development perspective. So what is happening is it's like happening in like two different areas. One is like how do we effectively apply the Gen AI tools on software development, and the other one is like how do we apply the Gen AI tools in terms of the business processes and the customer support operations, and in terms of giving more capabilities to the customer. Now, we are primarily starting with, at least in my organization, we are focused on how do we uptake this Gen AI tool set and how do we apply that tool set to the software development processes in a way that can meet our both secure our privacy and safeguard the proprietary information that exists within Verizon. Now, what we have noticed is that, like, when you're integrating the Gen AI tools with our traditional systems, actually there is a benefit that can be had, because generally what happens is the tool set provides you a template that essentially takes away a lot of the work that an individual software developer has to do in terms of having to research and figure out what the solution is, what the template should look like. And that's an important thing that we have seen that reduces the time to market. The other use case where we have really seen a big difference is being able to actually review the code that has been generated and being able to identify whether there is an issue there or not in the code that has been written by the developers or the change. And what we noticed is in one of our recent changes, we actually ended up having to identify there was an issue that kind of made it to production. And what we said is, okay, let's take that use case where something really bad happened, and can the Gen AI tool set detect this issue before it get pushed to production? So we took the code, we anonymized it, we gave it to like a GPT-like tool, and we said, okay, hey, just check for validate this particular set of scripts and tell me if there are any issues. And it actually identified exactly the line of code that could potentially have an issue and told us why that line of code is problematic. And we are expecting these tools to become just like another IDE tool set that people are utilizing in the normal processes. Now, fast forward, that will start with that. Once this adoption is done, what we are thinking is that this will start translating into features and functionality for the customers. Now, these tools that now there's no reason why the same capabilities cannot be provided in terms of customer support or being even able to allow the customers to build their own functionality on top of the data set that we are storing and managing for the customer. So the flexibility in terms of being able to look at the data, visualize the data, analyze the data, trend the data, ask
Mhm.
questions and get insights from this data can all most likely going to be happening in the next 2 years. I think that then industry is going to pivot quite a bit and change a lot because of the capabilities that we are able to realize from this Gen AI tool set.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out two things in summary there that are absolutely critically important. One is how do we make developers and employees more productive? And I think as we've experimented, I think as you've experimented over the last year using various tool sets and so forth, there's been kind of I felt some people got very binary. Well, it doesn't do everything. So kind of, I'm going to throw that out and not use that tool. And I think the approach that you've taken in your organization is what is that tool great for? I think you use great examples, which is a template to start off and to being the development, being able to integrate it as part of your QE and testing process to help with root cause analysis and really picking areas where you can leverage that technology to get a quick win, improve developer productivity. And the other is really customer or partner centric, I think, as you highlighted, which is what are the new services and things that our customers can take advantage by being able to interact with data in natural language, which is incredibly powerful. As I believe you're aware, just over the last week or two, we launched a tool called Capella IQ, which allows developers to interact using native language in Capella to do things like index creation, create documents, generate SQL++ code directly within Capella. So that's a big area of focus for Couchbase. We're in private preview right now in that tool with really the goal is how does an existing developer who's familiar with Couchbase or somebody new to Couchbase get up and running and really optimize their experience and ultimately deliver code and value into their organization. So a really, really exciting thing there. Kind of last question. I think building on what you're talking with developers and the developers in your organization, but when you look at database technology across the application set, what are the key components that you or your developers are looking for in a database to determine which database they're going to select for that next application that you are building?
Yeah, so when we look at like a database, typically what it comes down to is the functionality it provides, both in terms of like what are the use cases that this database is going to be used for? Is it like more like a key value store? Is it more like a query, like, or is it going to be like an inverted index, like search like operations? Or is it going to be storing a lot of data and we are doing analytics and aggregation on top of it? And what I can tell you is that Couchbase is well positioned to meet a lot of these needs for most customers today. And also the question around like being able to store and process large volume of data in a real-time manner. The key question is like how real-time can you get? One of the key trends that I'm seeing is that the actions that people want to take are no longer like, okay, hey, I want to collect this data, wait for a batch operation to happen next day or the next week or the next month, and then make decisions on that data. So I am seeing the trend of moving towards real-time actions. The
Yep.
key for real-time actions is real-time data and being able to process that data in real time and being able to get insights on that real-time data. And that's where I think a key aspect of a database, where the database is evolving, is to how quickly can we make that happen and how quickly can we happen at scale.
Yep.
And a lot of technologies are trying to get there. I'm pretty sure that like Couchbase is well positioned and trying to make an impact on the overall ecosystem of how data can translate into actions.
Yeah, and we share that same worldview, Mohan, at Couchbase, which, performance, scale, and real time, both real time in terms of how quickly you can process CRUD operations, but also in terms of processing that data, really the latency of that data, as you mentioned before, of moving away from a world of batch processing once a week, once a day, once a month into real time movement of that data that allows you to take real time actions regarding that data, either to help your employees, partners, or customers be successful using your technology and products. I would like to thank you so much for your time today, Mohan. Really appreciated the chat and sharing your insights, not only about the use cases at Verizon, how you've leveraged Couchbase technology, but also about trends, particularly around AI. It's a fast-moving place, and I think the audience will really appreciate your perspective and ideas on how AI can be incorporated to improve developer productivity and ultimately deliver a better experience for your customers and partners. So with that being said, I'd like to thank those who've been watching. If you're interested to learn more or how you can get quickly and cost efficiently build your own modern applications, feel free to sign up for a trial of Couchbase Capella at couchbase.com/Capella. We'll see you on the next edition of Leaders of Innovation. Thank you very much.